Okay, so we're going to be checking out Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden's new spells that came out in Campaign Book. Ooh, that was in August this year, I believe, Icewind Dale came out. So it's been a couple of months. I'm a little bit late to the show, but like I say, for this video, I just want to go over some of the new spells that are introduced. I'm really enjoying this book. They have definitely put a lot of work into the description of the 10 towns, which is what I think a lot of Icewind Dale fans really wanted to see, as well as some of the new secrets that they're adding are very, very interesting. Me and my players are currently playing through Storm King's Thunder. Great campaign. Nice thing about this is that it very much ties into the north and the Sword Coast, so you can lead into Icewind Dale with this very easily. I mean, God, even through that you can get into Waterdeep. You can also get into Prince of the Apocalypse, and man, you're not too far away from getting into Baldur's Gate as well. So enough of that though, let's check out the new spells introduced in Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Alright, well let's take a look at the book itself. It's about 320 pages. It does come up with a really nice sandboxy type map that I haven't even taken out yet. I'm kind of waiting for my players to jump into it. The map is very reminiscent of Tome of Annihilation, so very sandboxy. But let's go straight to, oh man, I just want to mention how awesome the Beast Appendix is. The amount of monsters and new creatures, characters, NPCs that are added are very, very cool. Just for that alone, I think is just, oh my god, look at the little gnome squidly. Anyways, let's bounce over to these spells. There's only 3 of them that are added within this campaign. But I definitely think they are noteworthy and worth taking a look. There's spells ranging from level 1 all the way to level 9. So let's zoom in and get a better focus on this. Alright, so first one I want to take a look at is Frost Fingers, which is a level 1 evocation spell. Now, right away, you're going to be thinking of Burning Hands, just as a comparison to a level 1 evocation spell. But let's take a look at the details of Frost Fingers. It is a 15-foot cone, which sounds familiar. It also doesn't take any material components, and it's an instantaneous duration. A freezing cold blast from your fingertips in a 15-foot cone, that sounds familiar. Each creature in that area must make a Constitution saving throw, taking 2d8 damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. The cold freezes non-magical liquids in an area that aren't being worn or carried. And it also has the increase in damage by 1d8 die, depending on how many spell slots you bump it up by. So taking that in mind, let's take a look at Burning Hands. Now, Burning Hands, instead of doing the 2d8, which adds up to a possible 16 damage, Burning Hands does a 3d6, which is a possibility of, that's 18, isn't it? Yeah, 6, 12, plus 6 is 18, yep. So Burning Hands can have a possibility of 2 more damage tied to it. I think the big thing to it, and you know, they both have the saving throws, but I think the big thing to note is the saving throw of dexterity with Burning Hands, as opposed to Frost Fingers being a Constitution saving throw. So right away you can kind of think of the uses with that. You know, especially at lower levels, you're fighting a lot of, you know, tiny nimble creatures like goblins, something like that. And, you know, they're already going to have a bit of a dexterity bonus. So going with something with Frost Fingers might be good against monsters that you are suspecting to have a higher dex and a lower constitution. So I think that's a good benefit for going with the frost type of damage overall. And I think the real other big thing to note is just the environmental changes, the utility. Whereas Burning Hands can ignite flammable objects, Frost Fingers is obviously going to be freezing areas of liquids as it is described. But anyways, that's Frost Fingers, level 1 evocation. I think it's just a nice and alternative to have if you're not looking to go after something like Burning Hands and kind of stay closer to ice or frost damage spells. Okay, next spell that we're looking at, it jumps all the way to a level 7th transmutation spell. That is Create a Magen. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that Magen. I think so. So Magans are basically, you can think of like golem type creatures. They are featured within the campaign here, and we're going to be going to Appendix C right after I go through the spell description, just to show you what kind of Magans we can actually put together. Now, the casting time is an hour. It does require some expensive material components. A vial of Quicksilver worth 500 gold pieces, and the life-size human doll, which I don't know where you're going to find that, both of which the spell consumes. You also use what is described an intricate crystal rod worth at least 1500 GP, but that is not consumed in the process, so that's important to note. So while casting the spell, you place a vial of the quicksilver into the chest of the life-size human doll, stuffed with ash or dust. You then stitch up the doll and drip your blood on it. At the end of casting, you tap the doll with a crystal rod, transforming it into a Magen clothed in whatever the doll was wearing. Type of Magen is chosen by you during the casting of the spell. See Appendix C for different kinds of Magen and their statistics. Now, this is a real important thing to note. When the Magen appears, your hit point maximum decreases by an amount equal to the Magen's challenge rating, minimum reduction of 1. Only a wish spell can undo this reduction to your hit point maximum. Any Magens you create with this spell obeys your command without question. Alright, so a little bit of a process to it. Honestly, the casting time is only an hour, so that seems fairly quick for putting a golem together. But again, you know, there are the 500 GP of the Quicksilver, as well as I'm sure that's not too hard to put together. So it makes it, you know, in terms of putting a golem together, not too bad. But let's flip over to Appendix C and take a look at which kind of Magens we can actually construct. Alright, so we're just in Appendix C, page 300, and I'm just going to briefly kind of go over some of the Magens that were in the description for the 7th level spell of creating one of these. Now, big thing to remember that in this creation of this golem-like creature, you do lose a maximum hit point depending on the challenge rating of the Magen that you create. The challenge ratings range from 1 to 3. And as a wizard, so it's 7th level spell. And I think that makes you level 13 when you're able to cast a 7th level wizard spell, just being as a wizard. So keep that in mind. You know, as a wizard, you obviously don't want to lose too many health points, and it can be reversed with a wish spell. But let's take a look at the Magens here. First one with the challenge rating of 1 is the Hypnos Magen. Now, they do have very low ACs of 12s, 34 hit points, average speed. It does have damage immunities to poison, charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed. You would expect that. Passive perception of 10. Let's see, let's take Psychic Lash. Target creatures. See, within 60 feet, the target must succeed a DC 12 Wisdom saving throw or take 2d10 psychic damage. So it is dealing psychic damage. That's kind of nice. It can also use an action suggestion. Again, we're looking at the Hypnos Magen. The Magen casts a suggestion spell requiring no material component. The target must be a creature the Magen can communicate with telepathically. If it succeeds, the target is immune to this Magen suggestion spell. Or if it succeeds on its throw, Magen spell's casting ability is intelligence. So, I mean, it's okay. It's a challenge rating of 1, so you're going to lose 1 hit point, but you basically get the Hypno Servant. I think the Psychic Lash is a neat attack, and being able to dish out psychic damage is never a bad thing. So we're going to move over to the Demos Magen. That's a challenge rating of 2. And he's definitely more of our fighter, kind of fighter arrangement. Let's look at his actions. He gets to make 2 melee attacks with his Great Sword, which is a +4 to hit. He also has a light crossbow, has the same damage and condition immunities as the Hypno Magnus, as well as the same passive perception. Does have a slightly higher armor class with 16 quoted chainmail. So, I mean, again, you're looking at a challenge rating of 2. You're losing your 2 hit points for having, you know, a challenge rating to henchmen around. Kind of neat. I kind of would lean towards, I think, the Hypnos Magen, just for this fact that he's doing psychic damage, can also cast suggestion, so I find there's a little bit more interesting with that. But finally, let's take a look at the last one, the Galvan Magen, and then I'll read some more of the descriptions here. But this is our challenge rating 3 Magen. Has an armor class of 14, so in the middle of the road there. 68 hit points, which is pretty juicy. I didn't mention that the Demos actually has 51 hit points as well. Again, back to the Galvan Magen. Has damage immunities, including lightning, which is kind of cool. Passive perception of 10, so nothing different there. Fiery End. If the Magen dies, oh, and this is something that goes all across them. Fiery End is if the Magen dies, it basically kind of is like a suicide bomb. The body is disintegrated into a harmful burst of fire and smoke, leaving behind anything that was wearing or carrying. Oh, I guess it doesn't do damage, it just disintegrates. Magic resistance. The Magen has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and that's important to note as it goes across all Magen. So some good magical resistance. I guess that's probably the real, you know, with these being low challenge rating creatures, I think that's the real benefit, is that they are highly magical resistance, hence being a golem type. Last part of it, unusual nature. The Magen doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep, blah, blah, blah. We would assume that. Again, now this one does have multi-attacks. Magen makes 2 shocking touch attacks. Okay, so it has a shocking touch, which is a +6 to hit, 5 feet, then it's a touch. Magen has advantage on the roll if the target is wearing armor made of metal. Oh shit, that's gonna come up a lot. And we also have static discharge. The Magen discharges a lightning bolt in a 60-foot line that is 5 feet wide. Each creature in the line must make a DC 14 Dex save with disadvantage if the creature is wearing armor made of metal, taking 4d10 lightning damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. So very interesting. So I think the big thing is that, you know, even though the Galvin Magen I think is really interesting, especially with having the shocking attach, but just for the 1 challenge rating, just losing the 1 hit point, I think the Hypnos Magen is actually pretty cool. Now, is that Psychic Lash? Yeah, the Psychic Lash, it has a 60-foot range to it. So, I mean, you're keeping them out of harm's way as well. I really think the Hypnos Magen would be the one to kind of go after. Galvin's actually pretty cool too, but, you know, I think the big thing is just their magic resistance. Let's take a look at a little bit more of the description here. Sorry for not being zoomed in. Magens are magical human-like beings created by wizard spell or by other arcane methods. Though Magen look like humanoids with green skin, they are constructs. When one is wounded, its blood is seen to have a color and consistency of mercury. They exist purely through magical means. When one is killed, the body disappears in a burst of harmless fire and a cloud of smoke that quickly dissipates. Magical servants. Magen make ideal servants at creation. Each is instilled with an instinct to protect itself and its creator, and it follows its creator's instructions without hesitation. When its task is complete, a Magen stands immobile and silent until its creator gives a new order. The Demos Magen wears armor, wields weapons, and typical serve as a guard. The Galvin Magen can fly. Oh, I didn't see the flying speed. Yeah, it's got 30 hover speed. I didn't see that. They can also store static electricity, which they discharge as lightning bolts. That is the static discharge, which just have a note on recharge. And finally, the Hypnos Magen. Hypnos Magens are telepathic and use their power of suggestion to control others. The creators use them to force enemies to withdraw or surrender. A Hypnos Magen carries no weapons, relying entirely on its psychic ability to manipulate and harm other creatures. Alright, so last spell to take a look at is the 9th level conjuration spell, Blade of Disaster. Now, this is just a casting time of a bonus action, so I think that's really important to consider, especially since it is a 9th level spell. You would expect some pretty batshit crazy stuff with this. So keep that in mind, that it is just a bonus action to cast the spell. It is concentration up to 1 minute. It doesn't take any material components, and it does have a casting range of 60 feet. You create a blade-shaped planar rift about 3 feet long in an unoccupied space you can see within range. The blade lasts for the duration. When you cast a spell, you can make up to 2 melee attacks with the blade, each one against a creature, loose object, or structure within 5 feet of the blade. On a hit, the target takes 4d12 force damage. This attack scores a critical hit if the number on the d20 is 18 or higher. On a critical hit, the blade deals an extra 8d12 force damage for a total of 12d12 force damage. Now, I think the wording is very important on this, and I would really appreciate anybody in the comments that wants to comment or help educate me on this. I haven't done any research on the spell from anybody else, but how I read it is, you know, with the critical hit scoring on an 18, 19, or 20, it sounds like the critical hit is adding more than just double damage. On a critical hit, the blade deals an extra 8d12 force damage. So an extra 8d12, not an extra 4d12, which is what a usual critical hit which should work out to. And that's going to give us a total of 12d12 force damage. So this Blade of Disaster has an increased chance of scoring a critical hit, being 18 to 20. And not only that, the critical hit damage that is done is it's multiplied not just by double, it's 8d12, which is huge. So there is huge potential for big damage from this spell. It is, and again, it's a 9th level spell. We're expecting some crazy benefit to this. But like I say, I think the real big thing to consider with this spell is that it is just a bonus action to cast. So when you're in a heat of battle and you have a bonus action left, being able to pump out a 9th level spell like this is going to be pretty potent. Last thing to mention on it, as a bonus action on your turn, you can move the blade up to 30 feet in an unoccupied space. And then you can make 2 melee spell attacks with the blade again. The blade can also harmlessly pass through any barrier, including a wall of force. Very interesting spell. Obviously, a lot of damage going on with the opportunity to get a critical, and then the increased critical damage, leading up to 12d12 force damage. Pretty cool spell, but like I say, it is a 9th level, and I think and I know I've said this a few times already, I think the real benefit of it is the casting time of just being a bonus action. However, it does require a concentration, so that's a drawback to it as well. But again, I think it's really a spell that's going to be beneficial to a wizard that's in the heat of battle, and you can just drop this using a bonus action and get some pretty crazy damage out of it. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video on the new spells introduced in Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. Neat spells, I think. I mean, especially just having the Frost Fingers for level 1 just adds a nice touch for, you know, wizards or Arcana users that want to maintain that cold ice theme, so that's great. The Golem Magen construction, I think, is interesting. They're neat constructs to be able to have. And finally, the Blade of Disaster, I think, is a neat utility level 9 spell, being able to cast as a bonus action and do some pretty insane damage as well. It does require concentration, so that's something to keep in mind, but again, pretty nutty damage for bonus action. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any corrections or any information you want to share, please leave a comment. If you liked the video, drop a like. If you didn't like the video, drop a dislike so I know to do better for next time. Anyways, hope you guys like it. Thanks a lot. Take care. Love you long time. Blah, blah, blah.